Yeah, I'll kind of keep. Just you want to mess?
No, go ahead.
I'll keep going with the stigmata, and sort of the goal here is to sort of paint the picture of what it was really like for him. So he had these visions. It didn't just appear. It was really through this. I don't know how to even explain it. Just visions, prayer, all that kind of stuff. So as I said before, he was very sort of petrified by the idea that like he had these wounds. I think any of us would probably be like that.
Just to, yeah, to clarify, for your listener, somebody may not understand stigmata. So when we talk about the wounds of Christ, he was bleeding from his hands. He had the wounds of Christ in his hands, right? And so you think about the 5 wounds in his hands, on his feet, and then on his side. So that's why when Miko was referencing like those bandages, he would bleed from his hands, because he had the wounds of Christ. So go ahead, Miko.
And he also actually experienced the pain of the crown of thorns and the scourging. So he was really going through it. So he actually had a vision in which Christ appeared and pierced his side. So he actually had a vision of Christ coming and doing that. And this is actually what's called a transverberation, which is a piercing of the heart, indicating the union of love with God. Pretty powerful stuff. So next I'm going to read a little letter he wrote to another priest, kind of describing the transverberation. He says, "While I was hearing the boys' confessions on the evening of August 5th, I was suddenly terrorized by the sight of a celestial person who presented himself to my mind's eye. He had in his hand a sort of weapon, like a very long, sharp-pointed steel blade, which seemed to emit fire. At the very instant that I saw all this, I saw that person hurl the weapon into my soul with all his might. I cried out with difficulty and felt like I was dying. I asked the boys to leave because I felt ill and no longer had the strength to continue. This agony lasted interruptedly until the morning of the 7th. I cannot tell you how much I suffered during this period of anguish. Even my entrails were torn and ruptured by the weapon, and nothing was spared. From that day I have been mortally wounded. I feel in the depths of my soul a wound that is always open, which causes me continual agony." How gnarly is that?
Yeah, I mean, how do you respond when you crack a letter open like that from your homie,
Yeah,
right, and your friend?
seriously.
I mean, when you think about the just the holiness of this saint, and again, these are kind of these saints that stand out where it speaks to the, I don't know, his union with God. Because like literally God is giving you his wounds. He feels the crowning of thorns. He feels the scourging at the pillar. Let's just be candid. I'm not there yet, right? I've watched The Passion. I still cry. I still wince. I still turn away at times because I aspire to be that type of man that Christ was. And so for Padre Pio to be that witness and to experience that level of intimacy with Christ, man, just speaks to the type of man he was and the type of disciple that he was. But recognize for the people out there, like that's not easy to take on. Like he literally took on the wounds of Christ. He took on the suffering and the pain, not only in his own heart and soul, but in his body. That's just, it's mind boggling to think that this is a saint that walked around in the 20th century.
Yeah. And before, Keone, I get your take, I'm going to read the rest of it to explain how he got the rest of the wounds. And so this was August 5th through 7th, right? That's when he's having the sort of his side wound appear. This is on September 20th, that same year. So just a little bit later, he was engaged in prayer in the choir loft in the church that he was at. And the same being who appeared to him and have given him the transverberation and who was believed to be the wounded Christ appeared again. And Padre Pio had another experience of religious ecstasy. When the ecstasy ended, Padre Pio had received the visible stigmata, the 5 wounds of Christ. And this time, it stayed with him for 50 years. So he had, as I said before, he'd been kind of experiencing this pain for a few years already, but it wasn't visible until this moment in 1918. And then he has another, if that letter wasn't good enough, he's writing to Father again. He's letting him know what happened this time. This letter is in October. He says, "On the morning of the 20th of last month, in the choir after I had celebrated Mass, I yielded to a drowsiness similar to a sweet sleep. I saw before me a mysterious person similar to the one I had seen on the evening of August 5th. The only difference was that his hands and feet inside were dripping blood. This sight terrified me, and what I felt at that moment is indescribable. I thought I should have died if the Lord had not intervened and strengthened my heart, which was about to burst out of my chest. The vision disappeared, and I became aware that my hands, feet, inside were dripping blood. Imagine the agony I experienced and continue to experience almost every day. The heart wound bleeds continually, especially from Thursday evening until Saturday. Dear Father, I am dying of pain because of the wounds and resulting embarrassment I feel deep in my soul. I'm afraid I shall bleed to death if the Lord does not hear my heartfelt supplication to relieve me of this condition. Will Jesus, who is so good, grant me this grace? Will he at least free me from the embarrassment caused by these outward signs? I'll raise my voice and will not stop imploring him until in his mercy he takes away not the wound or the pain, which is impossible since I wish to be inebriated with pain, but these outward signs which cause me such embarrassment and unbearable humiliation.
Real quick before Keone comments, he was talking about the heart wound is painful, especially Thursday through Saturday. So for us as Catholics, as you kind of get an insight, we have what we call the Triduum, which is the one liturgy across the 3 days from the Last Supper, which would happen on Holy Thursday through Holy Saturday, right? And we have the Easter Vigil. So every week he lives the Passion through those wounds every week, right? We Catholics complain about Easter coming once a year and we got Lent for 40 days. He lives the Passion, experiences the Passion every week. What say you, Keone?
Just like, to me, what stood out is like, and I don't know if there's been like comments on this by theologians and whatnot, but especially the first experience, we talked about the piercing of the heart, and there was like a spear, right, of fire or a blade of fire or what have you. To me, it sounds like purgation, like purgatory. He was going through it on earth, right? If like his his heart was pierced with the fire, right? And it's like, I mean, I came to set the world on fire, and how I wish it was already blazing, right? Like I'm going to pierce your heart. And what is the heart the symbol of? It is like the receptivity. It's like the openness. I'm giving you my heart, and it's gonna hurt though, Padre. Like, Pio, it's gonna hurt. It's you're gonna have to let go of things. You're gonna have to open yourself to me, and he just embraces it, and it's a pain, right? And there's no wonder he's a saint. I mean, the amount of purification that he went through, and also how if we actually let it pierce our hearts listening to this, and not just kind of like, oh, that's cool to know, that's an interesting saint, right? But actually, like, what are the nuggets of grace that is being emitted from his life that we can take and now incorporate, um, and what are our wounds that we need to offer God. Um, but yeah, just the piercing of the heart was huge, because it's like, that's how God tries to reach each and every one of us in a certain way. He comes on this earth, wanting to set our hearts on fire, but oftentimes we have walls, right? And I know for me, when we talked about our past podcast about, the relationship being a difficulty, and how we can intellectualize all day long, but is he piercing our heart? Are we allowing him to pierce our heart? And oftentimes, if we allow him to do that, it will hurt. It will be painful. And I think this is a manifestation of it, is when you allow that to happen, spiritually speaking, and often bodily too. This is just like a maybe exaggerated in his life, just to really give us a sign, right? Bodily pain too. That's the path to sanctity. Not because our body is bad, but it's an instrument of the invisible reality that I think God is trying to share with us. So I think it's so deep, it's so rich if we can like sit with it. Like, this man allowed his heart to be pierced, his hands to be pierced, his feet to be pierced, so that he can, like you said, his heart can be in union with God. And that's what we all truly desire. And so I just, that piercing of the heart has been something ever since I started listening to Theology of the Body, has been huge for me. Like, actually let it pierce your heart, and not like, how can I describe this in a perfect way? How can I be able to debate this or defend this, or, put it on paper in a beautiful, no, how can you let it actually transform you? And I think for him, it was like this transformation in him of like, I'm going to take this on, and regardless of the humiliation, I'm going to have to sit with this. Right. And I think there's even a sense of maybe a purification, I don't know, for Padre Pio, and that he didn't want the humiliation, right? But why was he humiliated? What was that like? Was it disordered? Was it pure? I'm not sure. Just something to think about, is that he wanted the pain, but there was humiliation. Well, why? Why was there humiliation there? And why did it last for 50 years afterwards? Was there a purification in how he saw the wounds and how he was embarrassed, right? There's something healing there for him. To me, that's just fascinating. I don't know if there's, obviously, maybe we can look at some other commentary on it, people who knew him better, but it's just interesting too, right? He had this fight between, I want the pain, but I don't want the humiliation, but the humiliation is not because of the pain. because of how it looks. And so it's just kind of interesting what he went through internally to kind of embrace it in a different and maybe more complete way. But regardless, that's the path to sanctity. Like it's a living witness, 100 years ago, right? So it was huge. But I'll just kind of stress again the piercing of the heart, and that's huge. That's the journey right there.
Yeah, I would say if I'm not mistaken, to be inebriated is like drunk, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're
So let's listen to this psycho right here. I wish to be inebriated with pain, dude. That's what I think about. Because like that's what the saints are. I mean, they're literally like we would think that they're psycho at this point, you know? It's like if I just started putting rocks in my shoes when I was just walking, right? And then you see my feet bleeding through my shoes, what would you say? That guy's a psycho.
yeah.
That's basically what Pio is doing. I wish to be inebriated with pain. And then I sit there and I think about like how many times I get frustrated in a day. And it's like, dude, I'm such a lame. It's just embarrassing. But I mean, that one, I wish to be inebriated with pain because I think about, you know, Saint Therese says the little way, right? The little things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how many times I think even we said that, right? Like, oh, cold showers or just little things of asceticism or whatever it may be. And it's like, how many opportunities, even though we say it all the time personally, how many opportunities I have in a day to just offer half a sacrifice, dude.
Yeah.
Just a small one. And this guy wishes to be inebriated with pain. I mean, what an animal, man. And that's why we talk about this guy being gangster, because it's like, dude, we're in none of that.
Yeah.
You're absolutely none of that. You go watch Donnie Brasco or Goodfellas. Those guys aren't even close to this guy, man. It's amazing.
Makes us look real soft, right? Real soft.
Yeah, and so I mean I don't have anything as deep as Keone says, you know what I mean. I was just a marketing major, so it's a little bit harder for me. But that just sticks with me because it's how many opportunities. Like if we could just take anything, those opportunities, you know, where you just want to get ticked off so easily. It's like that's just a little bit of pain to take on, though. And if you can do that, if you can have your vantage point of your life be from the cross, that's when you unlock everything. Like we're talking about the path to sanctity. That's what it is. It's just having your life as the vantage point of the cross. If we could sum it up in, you know, in one sentence.
I think we're just going back to the comment, Keone, on humiliation, embarrassment. I'm not sure. We should probably like fact check this, but I think it's less about. I think it's the attention being drawn to him because he had the wounds of Christ. Like you notice, saints don't want to be like at all known for. They don't want the publicity. They don't want the they don't want the
outward signs.
Yeah, the outward signs, right? It's more like, look, he just wants this is really him and God at this point. Now,
but I also think the sacramentality, right? Like we are visible.
Yeah.
There's a reason why, we continue to receive the body and blood through visible signs on our sacrament. There's a reason why we go to a priest for confession. Like the visibleness, right, is huge, right, through the body. So for him to be a living witness, to be like, no, I don't want to just purify you. I want to, and especially in this time, we're talking world wars. We're talking, we're talking sexual revolution at the cusp. We're talking about modernism. We're talking about a lot of stuff going on at this time frame,
communism,
right? And he's like, everything, right? He's like, I want to use you and I need to use your body because that's what people are going to see. Right. And so I'm just wondering, again, if it was something he was battling that maybe needed to be purified. And obviously it was on for 50 years. So I think who knows if there was another letter or if we were to ask him at the very end, did he see it differently? And not because he wants attention, but it was an instrument of the invisible reality that, of redemption. Right. But it's a redemption of the body, too. So I was just curious because I think there's something beautiful in being a witness. And it's not like, look at me, I'm levitating, I'm Jesus here on earth in this new way. But which I think, of course, you're wanting to be purged of that. So, yeah, it's just curious to me just to see, like, we can learn from that, too.